cozy on a couch, my body mister, come figure it out with the Sonnet sisters.
So is it not with me as with that muse, stirred by a painted beauty to his verse, who heaven itself for ornament doth use, and every fair with his fair doth rehearse, making a couplement of proud compare, with sun and moon, with earth and sea's rich gems, with April's firstborn flowers and all things rare, that heaven's air in this huge rondure hems. O let me, true in love, but truly right, and then believe me, my love is as fair as any mother's child, though not so bright as those gold candles fixed in heaven's air. Let them say more that like of hearsay well, I will not praise that purpose not to sell.
What is the meaning of this?
Neighbours, Godspeed. Welcome to Sonnet Sisters. My name is Anna, and today I'm looking into the meaning of sonnet number 21. So we've heard the actual words of the sonnet. Now let's talk a bit about first impressions. My first impression was that the message of this poem was something like, sure, my love may not be the most beautiful by the universe's standards, but it is true, my love is true, and I will not overpraise it because I'm not selling it, I am keeping it, it is mine. Now, when I looked into the specific meanings behind some of the words in this sonnet and looked up some academic criticism on it, the modern translation that I came up with wasn't too far away from my first impressions. That goes something like this. I don't take my inspiration from the same place as that poet, who is inspired by artificial beauty, or inspired to use artificial beauty in his poetry. He who uses heaven itself to decorate or enhance his verse, and puts every beautiful thing on show for comparison with his love, making a stately comparison with the most iconic beauties of nature, which confines or grounds or brings in the graces of heaven to this earthly realm. It confines all of earth's rich beauty in this hemisphere or the surrounding atmosphere. Let me write only truth, because my love is true. And take my word for it that my love is as beautiful as anyone, though not so bright as the stars. Let those who like to gossip say more if they wish. I will not indulge in praising something I do not wish to part with. Which is quite a nice sentiment. So to dive in a bit deeper, let's begin by looking at the specific meanings behind some of the words and phrases that we might not be as familiar with. Muse, which is a lovely word, could refer to a poet who is inspired by a muse, or it could refer to one of the 9 Greek Muses, the goddesses of inspiration, of which there are different types. There is one for epic poetry, one for love, one for tragedy. Go and look them up, they're very cool, and there are some very cool Google image fan art representations of them. Popular opinion is that muse here means the poet who's inspired by a muse, but it is capitalised, so I'm inclined to think otherwise. Stirred, which is a word that we do have these days, but we don't really use it that often in this context, just means moved or inspired to something, so stirred to something. Painted is another word which is debated here because some people say it means made up with cosmetics, which is quite a literal, obvious meaning. Some sources say this is very unlikely, or at least unjustly levelled at women in cosmetics, because that was not a common perception of the day, perhaps more so in the circles of people that Shakespeare is responding to in writing this poem. Making compare is one of those nice little Shakespeare-isms of the day, which just means making comparisons. Rare here means splendid or exceptionally beautiful. Rondure means sphere or world. Hems means closes. Any mother's child, which we can deconstruct quite simply, means anybody, any person. The gold candles fixed in heaven's air that Shakespeare is referring to are the stars. Purpose, which we're used to as a noun, is here being used as a verb, so it means intend. Rehearse is an interesting word which is used here, which is said to mean tiresomely repeat in conjunction with his loved one, which is just the most beautiful description of what any of these words are trying to communicate, and being an act actory, theatery person, it's quite nice to hear the word rehearse described as such. It also adds to this theme of artifice and theatre and an act, which runs throughout this poem. We have lots of images relating to grandeur or epic beauty or rare, unearthly beauty. So we have the Muses called upon, the goddesses. We have painted beauty, artificial beauty, using heaven as an ornament, so dragging something large and grand down to something earthy. Someone's love or lover being placed next to the sun and the moon in comparison with them. We have the gold candles, the stars, and we have a little bit of quite earthy, down-to-earth imagery, April's first flowers. And then we have this image of trapping heaven's air in earth, in this earthly realm, which is lots of things at once. It evokes futility, oppression, impossibility, reigning in something great. So it gives us lots of feelings. Now let's talk about the rhythm and the sound of this sonnet. This sonnet has a perfect iambic pentameter, so it's very clean cut, very simple and clean, like the poet's love. There's a bit of sibilance in the first few lines, which gives this kind of hissing, disdainful distance between the sonnet writer and the poet that he's talking about, who uses this grand imagery. He wants to separate himself from the other poet's habits. Heaven's air in this huge ronger hems is quite an awkward line to say, which is very fitting because it would probably be quite a difficult thing to do. Have you ever tried to hug the world? Have you ever tried to hug a large tree? Then we have this lovely little droplet of L sounds in "Oh, let me true in love but truly right," which is more lulling and softening. So this is building to the point of the persuasive message. So we've had all this other stuff is rubbish, but what I do, what I feel is lovely, and you should really like that in comparison, which is interesting because he doesn't like people rehearsing things in conjunction with beauty. We also have a couple of interesting pairings in rhyme, so we have gems and hems, which is nice because it potentially evokes this idea that there is a limitation to these high beauties. These gems hem you in, or are hemmed in themselves. And we have right and bright next to each other, which gives us this nice positive elevated feeling when thinking of the writing of this poet. So he is writing something beautiful, the truth. In terms of tone, I would say this sonnet is kind of defensive and kind of placating. So there's a sort of reaction at the beginning which feels like it's directed at a group of what I've written is lads, people showing off about love. And then there seems to be a message at the end which has a slightly different feel, which feels to me like it's more directed to the sonnet's, the poet's lover, to say, you are beautiful. It's like, it's not damning with faint praise, but it's like a, oh well, I guess I'll reassure you, but I'm not going to give you anything over demonstrative. So fine, you're beautiful, but you're not as good as the stars. All right, calm down. A few nice things to note before we go. Shakespeare himself uses similar comparisons to the ones he is damning here. As early as sonnet, 1, 7, 35, 52, 53, 68. So maybe this sonnet is a rejection of his own graspings at grandeur. The line, "Oh, let me true in love but truly right," has this wonderful message that the poet must maintain his fidelity, the fidelity that he keeps in his love, he must also keep in his writing. And I love that sentiment. Heaven itself for ornament doth use is irreverent, it is blasphemous. Can you imagine somebody taking heaven itself, of all things, heaven itself, and using it for ornament? Just downright rude. This poet could be levelled at famous poets of the day like Petrarch, Sidney, Daniel, Shakespeare himself. I would like to think he's that self-aware. It's a very clever way of calling out the conventions of poetry while excelling within those exact conventions. It's also a really nice investigation into why we love and what is so special about our love, about our lovers, what makes us fall in love, what makes us stay in love, what is love. In bad news this week, I'm doing an actings. I'm going to be playing the role of Harker in Bronzehead Theatre's production of Dracula, which is a very exciting reimagined version of the tale. It's going to be performed from Halloween to the 5th of November, and I will put some links in the doobly-doo. In terms of performing this sonnet to make sense of it in modern times, I quite like the idea of having a couple somewhere together. One of them is scrolling through some social media and seeing lots of pictures or tweets or descriptions of people's bays as high beauties, as, you know, the best, the most, the everything, and that partner getting perhaps a bit upset that their partner doesn't post in this way about them, and the partner of that partner, you know which one I mean, the partner who's not looking at social media, giving this sonnet as a speech in defence of not posting in that way. Let me know what you think of this sonnet and how you would perform it, and I will see you for my performance on Saturday. Until then, rest you merry. Now, when I looked into the word the gold candles fixed in heaven's air, which Shakespeare is referring to, is just a nice way of calling